stop George Bush from getting elected president.
Okay.
So they get caught selling drugs. Now, in the United States, there's a law. It's called a culpability law. If the government solicits you to commit a crime, and you commit a crime, and the government is your co-defendant, you can't be prosecuted.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Everybody with a dope case, their co-defendant is the U.S. government. Let that sink in. Because the government has been the ones bringing the dope in the whole time.
Distributing it, transporting it, delegating what locations to distribute it for, for whatever reasons. Yeah.
If we knew about the opium wars, right? This is what caused Mao Zedong to rise to power. The British was going into China and they was creating what's called opium dens all over the country. And wars broke out in the transporting of heroin or opium at that time. It wasn't heroin yet.
Yeah.
Right. So then they had what's called the Opium Wars. The Opium Wars gave birth to something called the French Connection. The French Connection was transporting China white, but in the movie, I think it was cocaine. But cocaine don't come from France or Asia. It comes from South America.
Yeah.
And some of the islands produce the coca leaf too. Yeah. Right. Now, while all of this is going on, we over here oblivious. Walking around la-di-da in fool's paradise.
Because remember, most news, when you go abroad, you actually hear more news about your country than you'll hear from inside your country. So we're usually just like, we think have free speech and we can delegate and say things out loud and it's everything censored from inside and from outside.
You know, the first time I found out about 9/11, it was a show on a Canadian channel called The Fifth Estate. It's like Nightline or Dateline over here. And about 4 months after 9/11, they did a whole broadcast tracking down everything. That's the first people that I found out was telling us that the government was behind it and it wasn't no hijackers.
That's probably where we got the first leak. And then also the 7 Israelis, I'm not sure if there were 6 or 7 Israelis that were celebrating, that was on the news. And when 9/11 went down, all of the floors were Jewish companies, all got a heads up. Obviously, they got the insurance policy, the guy who bought the building right before it happened and got the insurance policy too. Okay. So that's when we found out they were probably the leak, because the person who said they saw the Israelis celebrating, that it was a woman, I think. She reported
they was
to
in the white van. They had jumped out the white van. Now remember, also white vans came into play in the transporting a massive amount of gold under the tunnels out of the World Trade Center. One of them,
when they got rid of all of they got they emptied out all of those gold places where they stored the gold.
Yep. So one of the vans, some kind of way was decommissioned in the tunnel and they left it there and it was still full of gold. I mean, they was in a hurry to get away. They didn't have time to switch the gold to the other vehicles. So it was also a white van. Then there's another lady who did the controlled demolition investigation.
Oh, yeah.
And she found the boxes of explosives, the video footage from the garage from before it, like a couple of months before, they was doing midnight repairs all night long after the building was closed for like 3 or 4 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and she found the
boxes
boxes and all that.
Remember the accounts that the firemen, the policemen, the New York City cops, before they totally swept the internet, took it offline, the first thing they said is they heard the booms, the explosions at the base of the building. And these men would know, because there's no way that a plane would hit the top of a building and it could collapse an entire building, especially with all that steel. It would have to collapse from the base, like any other demolition in New York City.
Well, here go the problem too with the plane causing the crash, because the way that we don't know about the Empire State Building got struck by a Cessna back in like the 20s or the 30s. This was before the World Trade Center was built. So because of that, the World Trade Center was built to withstand a direct hit from an airplane on purpose. That's why it had an exoskeleton, and then it had an internal tube. Right? So if a plane did run into the building, then they say, well, the fuel from the plane melted the columns. No, it didn't.
No,
the fuel, jet fuel doesn't burn hot enough to melt steel.
Yeah. And when you see
thermite do.
Yeah, exactly. But when you see how it fell, you've seen any demolition. I'm a New York girl. You've seen any demolition. You kind of, sometimes you get to watch it. The way that the building fell was exactly how a full demolition happens. Nothing was non-uniform. It wasn't as ununiformed. Everything was uniformed in how it fell with any other demolition. Yeah.
You know, the first thing when I was watching it, when it was happening, I was like, it don't seem like the building should have fell like that. It seemed like the top should have tipped over.
It should have tipped over. It would have cracked over if it was normal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the next thing that got my attention that made me say, what the, was building number 7 that no plane hit.
And it collapsed.
And
I worked down there. So yeah. Yeah. And what's crazy is because you use the propaganda, because remember, they build the narrative, they control the narrative. So it's all mind control programming. You know, they perpetually say something over and over again, show you several scenes, tell you what you need to think, which, remember, Richard Pryor said when he was cheating on his girl, he was like, you gonna believe me or you gonna believe your lying eyes? Okay. You know, so people were seeing things that they knew very well weren't exactly how they were describing and constantly repetitiously saying. And then they also used trauma programming because people were so traumatized. New Yorkers didn't know what they were seeing. A lot of family members died. People did not come home. The police officers were in shock. You use the trauma. Trauma is wonderful at compartmentalizing the brain. And that's how you use the MK Ultra, is you create a trauma response that compartmentalizes the brain and it takes away from all rationality. So anything that you're programming the brain with is going to be nicely nestled into the part of your brain that accepts it as truth. So they did a wonderful thing. And meanwhile, no one used the grants, and we don't want to even talk about the Pentagon, which was never hit by a plane. And at the time I had a friend who was working for the Navy and showed me the image of a missile launcher in the lawn turning directly at the Pentagon, one of their own missile launchers, who hit it. And that's why you never saw an image of a plane on the Pentagon. They never showed it to you because they couldn't show it to you.
Those are the energies that the 72 SEALs have in them.
Okay.
Only by knowing which SEAL, what these 72 SEALs is, they actually DNA codons.
Okay, go ahead.
Right? But when you know the energy frequency, when it's being used in the character spell, it'll stick out. Now notice they only put 5-pointed stars in all of the 72 SEALs. That's the reverse side of the coin. The other side is the sigil side. So the 5-point star represents Venus.
Go ahead.
Right? The aspect of the Great Mother that is her most seductive and her most loving. Right? When she goes to the Big Mama aspect, the old crone, she's now seasoned, well developed in her mental perception of this reality. Right? And now she's seated on the throne as the old crone, Big Mama. In the beginning stages is the young girl on her fool's journey to become Big Mama.
Okay.
Right. So they reenacting the story on the Blue House, which is signature of the Hiram key, Hiram Abiff, who was struck by 3 ruffians. Hold up. Yep.
Hey.
Hold on 1 second, Elder.
Go ahead, handle your business. Yeah, that's gonna bring me to my next question that I got. That's gonna tie into this whole thing. Hey, if you're new to the channel, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Hey, Rod, this gonna tie what you just saying. This gonna tie. Now, this is the big question because I wrote this one down, man. I pondered on it all day, and you just said a lot on this already, and there's a lot out about it. But it seemed like to me, based on my research, as I'm still learning and going back and finding other stuff, I'm always finding a woman breastfeeding a child, like it's a male child, right? Even when I go back to studying the reptilians, they got the reptilian breastfeeding the male child. And then you go to the Inanna one, the Black Madonna one, Nimrod and his mother. I mean, it's always all the storylines, Jesus and his mother, Cleopatra and her son. It's always the mother-son concept. But it seemed like to me some kind of way they reversed it and made it father-son. They took the mother out and then put the father-son concept and the breastfeeding connection. Could you go in a little bit on that, the mother-son concept? Go ahead.
That's where you get your Masonic Lodge, mother and son, mama trained the son. So in these depictions of this imagery, the woman breastfeeding the infant, but the father is always counseling a child. He's not never breastfeeding, right? He's standing either next to him or he's standing, kneeling down to talk to him. In our culture, the Roman culture is a little different. It's freaky. It's male on male freaky, right? So the original was the birth of Earth's great defender, Heru. Heru's status as the prince who's the heir to Osiris's throne, but there's one problem. His uncle Set is in the way. So Set in the way becomes Satan's way. So now he got to figure out, as the infant to the great mother, how do I get my mama her proper position back and take my father's throne as his redeemer? I had to get rid of Uncle Set. So we waged war, the Falcon, against Uncle Set, which is really the armadillo from the south of the United States, but that's a whole nother thing. The war between Horus and Set is a war for the throne of Osiris that Set usurped, right? So who Set usurped means under something, Big Mama Seat. Do you know somebody who sit under Big Mama Seat, Elder?
The Pope.
The Pope.
Yeah. Peter's chair. Like Peter's chair.
Yeah, but St. Peter's chair is at a whole nother church.
Yeah. Go ahead. Break it down, right?
They use that because Peter is Pater and Pater is Father. So the Pope is holding Big Mama chair for his father, Set, that set him as a Jacobin, an underminer, under her throne to put the circle around the throne to block her from getting back to her seat. Right? So they show you the conjure magic part of it with the 72 stars in the uterus of the Great Mother. Right? But here's the part, if you notice at the beginning, she's not dressed like she from Egypt. She's not dressed like she from Rome. She dressed like Queen Califia. Play the first 30 seconds again, Elder. where y'all can see her, and then stop when you get on her picture and see if we can blow it up. Okay, I just wanted to show that. I'm gonna find the picture while we talking, and then I'm gonna text it to you.
Hey, this is what I want to ask you too about. Okay, so we know about the mother and son going down to like the Mason son, the breastfeeding. The Pope is really going bowing before the mother and son concept behind the closed doors. Now this so we're going into the closed doors. Now recently the Pope just opened these doors. What's your take on that, man? Because everybody got a different perspective on it. But what's your perspective on what the Pope got going on opening these doors? Is it the end of the church, or is he opening up some portals? People asking all these questions. What is your take on the Pope opening up the portals?
The first of all, that wasn't the Pope. I don't know who that dude was. Pope a whole android. It's two popes. The other Pope, let me see, you got, was it Francis and Benedict, was it? Anyway, the one who was supposed to be resigned was the one who was left with the keys of power. No Pope ever resigned because he had to match the church order. They got a name of the last Pope as Francis. Right? Francis is a robot. He been executed years ago for crimes against humanity and adrenochrome harvesting and child molesting. Right? He been gone. But that robot that they slide under the bed, they don't want people touching on him, so they have to hire an actor now. All that is to give us the illusion that it's business as usual when it's not. Because they don't got no more power at the Vatican. The sacerdotal seat has been claimed by the Great Mother. Right? When you seen Empress Redbird go in Philadelphia and sit in that state seat, that was the seat of government for the tribes. The collective of the tribes, with no tribe being better than another tribe. So that all of their grievances can be addressed with equity, with no favoritism. Because ain't no big eyes or no little U's unless you under the patriarchy, where they make some people better than the rest of the people. Big Mama don't play that. Right? So when she sat in that seat, they knew it was over. They knew it was over then, because now they didn't surrender the foundational document that they wrote up for their conquest called a loyal title. They already had to give her that. And then she went and sat in the sacerdotal seat. Right? Now, when she did that, it's game over, but you have to give the people's mentality a chance to catch up to the tribal events that's happening, coinciding with the government's events. Counter conjure. They now is responding to us because the counter conjure has been exposing the tribal oral traditional takeover, with many tribes being involved, playing different parts of the redemption. Right? And it starts at 2012, what we call the long walk home or the journey home. I think one of Malachi students named Mentuhotep was his name, who wrote The Journey Home.
I think that's his name, but I don't know for sure.
The Marcus Project, Journey Home.
Though, but I don't know.
He had to get that information out, right? Because at 2012, we needed to have a system in place in order for all of the tribes' leadership to have the opportunity to state their piece. Right? And when we go over the grievances of the varying different leaders, we find out why they in the condition they in, based on the war, based on the warfare that the people don't see. Silent weapons, quiet wars, world domination, warlords, violent whores. Blame the poor for trapping dollars on their own block, but the feds behind every single hot dope spot. They rock our communities with political homicides, and these crooked cops is telling us we need to law abide. But then they cover up these socially secret ass bastards, but the public can't see because they all good actors. Lifejackers putting babies in the state pen, getting raped and turned out by some grown ass men. The wrong that they end deserves hell's full fury, a black mass execution without a fucking jury.
Hey man, my next Rock, I got a list of questions, and these some hot joints, man. The next the next question we have for you, brother, is that we know that they told us that they brought us over here on ships. Shout out Dame Calloway, man, because we got that. I got that book. Story was told in reverse, in the covering on things. Hey, but we know that they told us we came on ships. Now, what was the ideology behind twisting us around to tell us that we came on ships if they really the real guys that came over here? Go ahead, Rock. Could you go ahead on that?
That's the conjure side of the war. That's the George Washington challenge, remember? At the end of 200 years, they supposed to have us so confused to believe that we from somewhere other than here. If we fall for it, they assert this is their domain and part of their territory, and they'll seize it because we surrender it. But if we know we Mississippi clay dirt walking, they screwed. Right? So they told us the story not only in reverse with false information, misinformation that served as a misdirection, right? Truthful and factual information gave by unreliable sources. Fictitious stories laden with truthful concepts, ideas, and statements, right? When you get done understanding the zig and the zag, then you understand how they flip when they roll. All of it is a David Copperfield grand illusion called the 3D Matrix. And as long as you keep falling for the Agent Smith effect, you're going to be continuously a slave for the Matrix. But you're about to get a rude awakening.
Hey, my next question, we'll take questions from the crowd too, but I'm gonna get these up because these are some good questions. My next question is, man, the maps. Man, I'm like the maps. I got it's over 1,000 maps of the earth and where shit located. But it's like somebody telling us, oh, Egypt over there, Egypt over here. Oh no, that's over there, this over here. It's like they twisted us around. They told us in reverse.
Right. Like, that's why they named all of these cities with biblical names. Right? Because we supposed to believe that we the people from the Bible when the people in the Bible is made up people. Right? If you believe that you a made up character from, let's say, Gorillas in the Mist, Jane Goodall out there with gorillas, now all of a sudden she claims she's a gorilla. Don't make her a gorilla. Right? They becoming part of the systemic closed minds. Like them horses downtown pull the carriages. Most people don't know this, but if you take a fully visual horse and cover his eyes up, he'll stand in one spot till he drop dead. But you got the horses downtown with blinders on going wherever he's led.